Hello everybody, and welcome to Zelda Month. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom comes out in the middle of this month, and I'm super excited. To celebrate, every Monday for the month of May, I will be making videos all about the Zelda franchise and ending it all off with a review of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom itself. Without further delay, let's hop right into it. Overworlds. The connective tissue that allows you to traverse from one level to the next. Overworlds are super important to the games that try to utilize them. If done right, they are some of the greatest world-building opportunities the game could offer, and it's all through gameplay, not spoon-fed to you by the story. There is an art to Overworlds, and so many games get it wrong. I believe for an Overworld to be good, it must accomplish three major things. First, it must be interesting to look at. If you're going to be spending most of the game here, it might as well look nice. Second, there must be something fun to do. An overworld being the connective tissue between levels cannot just serve that function and call it a day. Like I said before, you will be spending most of your time in the overworld, so if there isn't anything fun to do, then that means you aren't having fun for most of the time you're playing the game. Third, it must help the game with its world building, even by not saying a word, just by existing. The overworld that checks all three of these boxes is the overworld from Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, the overworld known as the Great Sea. This is the second most important aspect to a great overworld. If the overworld isn't fun to look at, then you're just going to be staring at a nothing burger of a segment of the game while you essentially just wait for the next level to start. It turns into a glorified loading screen. Let's take a look at a game like Sonic Adventure. Station Square checks this box. A bustling city that never sleeps, that's full of buildings, colorful landmarks like the casino in Twinkle Park, and it's full of moving parts like a good city should be. There are people everywhere whose orientation changes as the game goes on, as well as different cars driving past while you're traversing the city. It makes the city feel very lived in and alive instead of just a means to an end. The same cannot be said about the Mystic Ruins, especially the deep jungle. The same effort that was put into Station Square to make it feel alive cannot be said about Mystic Ruins. The jungle is huge and everything looks the same. The people are very few and far between, there really are no moving parts here. I'd take Station Square over Mystic Ruins any day. Now, back to Zelda. Just look at how beautiful this looks. I honestly think the game speaks for itself. This is where the cel-shaded art style works its wonders. If this was just normal-looking Zelda with normal-looking water, I don't think this would look nearly as vibrant and beautiful as it does here. Look at how saturated all the colors are. Look at the sense of movement that you have due to all the ripples in the water being highlighted by white lines. I could just stare at this beautiful sight for hours, and you know what? I have, considering how much you have to be here. Not only that, but there's islands everywhere, secrets, enemy towers, hell, even a ghost ship. Good lord, this game makes me want to sail the ocean seas. It almost makes me forget about my crippling fear of being out in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. God, the Great Sea is just one of the most beautiful overworlds in video games. Box number 1, checked. Now this is the second most important aspect of a good overworld. What one must remember when developing a game is that most, if not all, of the game should be, fun. Out of all the aspects of overworlds that I've laid out in this video, this is the aspect that, surprisingly enough, I see accomplished the least. It's honestly surprising how many games have the philosophy that the overworld is just a hub meant to get you from level to level, nothing more, when the hub world should just be treated as one giant level that you enter multiple times. Let's look at Sonic Adventure again. This is my biggest gripe with this game, honestly. As much as I love Station Square, Mystic Ruins, and the Egg Carrier, there is one fatal flaw to these adventure fields that they all suffer from: There's nothing to do. All you do is run around from level to level and occasionally initiate a cutscene. That's it. Sure, there are emblems around that you can collect, but these are completely optional, and even then there's only like 22 of them. Most of the challenge to get them isn't even a challenge. Most of the time you just have to walk up to them and boom, you got it. The worst offender of this has to be Shadow of the Colossus though. As you ride through the Forbidden Lands to defeat the 16 Colossi, there is nothing in your way. You are just riding your horse for however long this frustrating guidance system has you riding for, with no resistance in between other than Aggro's inability to walk. The only thing there is to do in this overworld is to collect lizard tails and fruit from fruit trees in order to increase your health and your grip strength. None of which is ever told to the player, so I have no idea how players even figured this out. Even then though, it's completely optional and so out of the way that it's barely even worth doing. Now let's look at the Great Sea. There are constant things to do here. Enemies to fight, ships to explore, towers to raid, islands to explore. It hits that perfect balance to where there isn't too much to do to where it feels like the game is just padding itself out, but it also doesn't give you a whole lot of nothing as you are traveling between levels either. If we want to talk about optional stuff as well, the treasure charts are a lot of fun to get through. Treasure charts are items that can be found or bought in the game that give you an idea of where a treasure can be found on the Great Sea. Go to the place on the map and you will find a special landmark, usually a set of islands, to which said treasure can be found. This made me feel like a real explorer and treasure hunter, and the feeling you get when you find said treasure? My god, I feel like I found real treasure. It's so satisfying every time. The Great Sea is some of the most fun I've ever had traversing an overworld. Being the second most important aspect of a good overworld, this is the part of the overworlds that most games get right. It really is interesting just how much can be said about the world you're exploring just by looking at the overworld. This is actually an aspect that I feel Shadow of the Colossus gets right. The Forbidden Lands are supposed to be abandoned, empty, desolate, isolating. No one is supposed to live here. It is a somber wasteland now inhabited by nothing but colossi. Hell, even in Sonic Adventure, Station Square, as stated above, is a bustling city that never sleeps. The Mystic Ruins is a jungle that has mysterious ancient ruins and artifacts left behind by a bygone tribe of echidnas, and the egg carrier is Robotnik's floating airship. All of it was conveyed without saying a single word. Now, this is the aspect of the game that I believe Wind Waker gets the least correct, but the least correct is still correct. What this game relies on as you traverse the Great Sea is that you've played previous Zelda games, specifically the previous 3D Zelda games. If you are a seasoned veteran of playing 3D Zeldas, you have traversed all of Hyrule before in Ocarina of Time. When traversing the Great Sea and playing through the game, you learn that this land you are traversing is, in fact, still Hyrule. This isn't like Majora's Mask where you get transported to Termina. No. The Great Sea is still Hyrule. It begs the question to every astute player, what happened to Hyrule to where it ended up like this? This is a plot point that gets revealed later when you explore Hyrule Castle midway through the game, but it's interesting that this question is not outright posed to the player. No character asks this question, no character wonders what Hyrule was like before it became the Great Sea, none of that. The question is posed by the overworld just existing. That is fucking awesome. If you are developing a game that is Zelda-like in nature and you want to create the best overworld you can, Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is the masterclass on how to do that. The aesthetic, the gameplay, the world building, it's all there and also really solid. This is the type of stuff that needs to be taught in game design classrooms. That's how good The Great Sea turned out. But what do you guys think? Is the Great Sea a great example of how video game overworld should be handled, or is there an even better example out there? Let me know in the comments below and we'll discuss. I respond to most comments, so I look forward to having those conversations. Socials and merch store are in the description below, and if you want to see the next Zelda Month video, become a channel member and you'll be able to see it right now. With that, I'm Bottles and I bid you, my well-esteemed guests, adieu.